Hello, 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 hello. I hate how the brightness keeps shifting. Hey guys, it's Ruthie. Welcome to my channel if you're new here, and welcome back if you've been here. So today I want to talk about some common themes and emotions and things people are working through that I'm hearing from the people in my world, as well as in my own personal world that I hear inside my own head. Almost all of the emotions and talking points that were brought to my attention are very sad and very depressing. So I'm gonna get very real today and just talk about my experience with these things and how I cope with them on a daily basis. These points were brought to my attention through an Instagram story that I made where I asked the question of what themes or emotions have you been moving through lately, as well as a few people from Insight Timer community who've brought some of these points up in my last live session. So the first emotion that I've been hearing people move through, and I have been moving through myself, is of course fear. So needless to say, we live in an incredibly fear-based society and world at the moment. Of course, all of this stuff is enhanced with the news and with social media and with all of the constant information that's just being thrown at our faces all the time. It's a lot. It is so much. It is so much to handle. Honestly, if you have no fear and if you are not scared, then you're not paying attention. Fear these days is just a byproduct of paying attention to what is going on. Of course, there are so many different degrees of this. There's many different degrees of fear in general. Some fear serves a purpose. Other fear is pretty irrational. Some fears that I deal with on a daily basis are climate change, the reality of that being a thing, and just all the uncertainty that comes with that, and all the uncertainty I have in our government and in our healthcare. I'm here in America, and it just seems to be getting worse every single year. Or I'm paying attention a little bit more every year because I'm getting older. Maybe it's staying the same and I'm just paying more attention, so getting more concerned, or they're both just increasing and things are getting worse and I'm paying more attention. So now it's just it's so absurd. But I will say that you have to take breaks. If your fears are involving political and social and all of the shit, if that's what your fears are mostly centered around at this time, you have to limit your intake of that information, because you're going to help no one if you are paralyzed by that fear. Hey, it's editing Ruthie. I don't feel like plugging in the microphone, so the sound will be worse here. But I was just editing that little chunk and something didn't sit right with me. So of course, if you have the option to limit your intake of the bad things happening in this world, it is because those bad things are not directly affecting you. I know that there are many groups of people in this country and all around the world who they don't have to look at the news to see all the bullshit that's happening to people, because the bullshit's happening to them. And that fact is what makes me feel like an asshole if I'm I need to limit my intake of what's happening in the world. No, there's people who don't have a choice and they're dealing with this shit. So I can deal to read about it and help out in whatever ways that I can, because to whom much is given, much is expected. And that view, it doesn't just end for me at limit your intake, because then I feel like a dick for doing that. But I mean, whoever you are in this world, whatever circumstances this society puts you in, you still have yourself. And I've been in many situations that were completely out of control of what my body is doing and what is happening to my body, and my body just being at the mercy of the people around me. So I know a hint of what this could be like. Obviously, I don't know what this is like to experience these microaggressions every single day for a whole your life, just slowly chipping away at your sense of self-worth. I don't know what that is like. I know the extent that a woman deals with, but of course I'm a conventionally attractive white woman. I'm in the highest seat, I guess you could say. But regardless of your circumstances, you have to make the time for yourself. Even in those moments where I was shrinking away in the hospital, not allowed to eat anything, not allowed to drink anything, just going inside yourself and just finding that love that's still there, and just like that innermost self that is never going to change, the unchanging self. I get that it seems like a bunch of woo-woo, and it seems like that wouldn't really fix anything. Or it could even seem like you're running away from like what's going on outside to be like, oh, I'm just going to sit and look at myself. But it's the opposite effect that actually happens from pausing to look into yourself and to just feel what you're feeling and just like truly feel it. Feel all of that pain that is out of your control and just experience it. That gives you so much strength. It just greatly helps in the good fight. You know, it helps in your morale and just being able to show up, because you can't show up if you're just constantly ruminating in all the shit. And again, I know that is so much easier to say when it's not directly happening to you every day of your life. I am so grateful that I don't know what that's like, but I also feel a sense of guilt because I know that there are people who have to deal with that. So yeah, that is the thought pattern. It's a constant circle. So if anyone knows an exit to that, I think I just need to keep going through the circle and keep reminding myself that I do need to take breaks. I'm not going to be of service to anyone if I am overwhelming myself with all of the shit, especially with a chronic illness. You need to know what your threshold is so that you can show up and that you don't just shrink away back into yourself for months and months and months. But if you have to do that, then you have to do that too. Ugh, it's so tricky. Okay, I just wanted to expand on that a little bit more because it's not that simple to just limit your intake of all the shit. That's how I hear myself sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna go now. Bye. So if you pay attention to every single thing that is put out there by whatever news source you get your information from, it will overwhelm you. It will cause a lot of fear. And fear is not something that is just an emotional thing in your mind. It's not just that. Fear is a physical reaction, and your body physically cannot handle all of the pain that is out there in the news, and we have to pace ourselves. If we want to be of any service to any group of people or any one person or our planet, if we want to serve the things that we care about, we have to be very conscious about how we are doing, and we have to know how much we can handle and be very honest about that with ourselves. Some days, if you wake up automatically feeling tired and like you're not excited about the day ahead of you, think back to what you did the night before. Did you spend all night reading like these really troublesome articles or watching YouTube videos or conspiracies? Like that stuff physically drains you and affects you. And it makes you way more easily affected by new things that pop up. So maybe right before you fell asleep, you were catching up on the horrors of the news, and then you wake up, you feel already exhausted, and then the smallest thing happens. Maybe like you're out of eggs, or it's raining, or something really small. That can just set you off immediately. Taking in negative information is just like constantly draining you. So then we're just living in a world of negative, and we have to counter it. We have to do the things we enjoy, the things that make us feel happy and calm and peaceful. And only you know what those things are. These are your passions or your hobbies or whatever things just spark that joy, you know? There's this amazing There's this amazing passage that I read in my last live session by Young Pueblo in his book Inward. And it says, "Peace makes you strong, hate reveals your emptiness, kindness feeds your happiness, anger reveals your fear, and love makes you free." Anger reveals your fear is what I want to focus on right now as we talk about fear. This sentence, anger reveals your fear, that can make you very angry. That makes me really angry sometimes when I read that, because For me at least, when I'm angry, a lot of things that I get angry about, I don't want to admit that I care about it, and I just want to be angry. Like, I just want to be angry. I don't want to have any other emotions attached to it. I don't want sadness. I just want to be mad. And I get very defensive if I feel like someone is insinuating that I could feel anything other than just anger. Especially fear, because fear and being scared, that is a very weak feeling emotion. It's not very motivating. It's when you feel fear, a lot of times, it's fight or flight. So maybe for some people, they want to fight when they are scared. I'm not one of those people. I am a flight or a freeze person most of the time. I'd like to think I would be a fight person if I needed to be, but I hopefully never have to find out. Grouping anger and fear and confronting that for yourself of when you feel a sense of anger, asking yourself, what could you be afraid of that's presenting itself to you right now? That is a really difficult thing to do because those are they seem like almost opposite emotions, but they are very connected. I think we see a lot of this in our political environment and the people who rest on either side of the spectrum. There's a lot of fear going on and therefore a lot of anger. And I think even more anger when you accuse the other of being fearful. So yeah, I know I'm not alone in that, actually, the more I think about it. So something that was really helpful that a therapist of mine once said to help me with my fear-based thoughts, because I've always had a lot of fear-based thoughts involving the hospital, having another surgery, going out with friends, and the CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy approach to this is to play these things out. And I know I've talked about this in videos before, but just kind of work through your worst case scenarios. And the thing that you are so scared of, a lot of times we try to distract ourselves from it or we deny that we are fearful of the thing. And this just kind of makes it have more power over us. And I always picture it as like those repeating thoughts that are in your head that you really don't want to be there. And if you push them down like further, all they do is echo inside of you more and they become louder on a deeper level and end up controlling your actions without your awareness of it because you refuse to look at it. So my particular fear I had about ending up in the hospital again with another emergency surgery or whatever, it's obviously a very big fear of mine because of history. The first thing I do to kind of get myself out of that mind space is, one, validating the fear. I think everyone out there, no matter what you are afraid of, the first thing you have to do when confronting it is, one, acknowledge it, I guess. Acknowledge that you have the fear. And then validate that you have that fear. Instead of beating yourself up about it, like your instinct might be of like, why do I fear that? It's so stupid. Like, I know I shouldn't be afraid of this, but like when those voices and phrases start to pop up in your head, stopping those and just reminding yourself that it is perfectly okay that you are afraid right now because life is scary. No matter what you are afraid of, it's valid. Your fears are completely valid. And really starting there and not just saying it or saying it until you feel it as truth, because it is true. No matter what you are scared of, it is completely valid that you are scared of that. And you can trust that that is the complete truth. After one, accepting you have the fear, two, validating that it's normal that you have that fear, or it's perfectly human, or whatever thing makes the most sense to you, then working through that fear. And I think that kind of is bundled with validating your fear. So with my fear of ending up in the hospital, I validated that fear by saying, history. History says that I have randomly ended up in the hospital and in a surgery within a few hours, where I'm like healthy 1 hour and sick and in surgery within the next few hours. So it is normal that I am afraid of that because it's happened. And then after I validate the fear, I play it out and I pretend that it's happening to me again right now. And I think this one really depends on what your fear is. Like, I don't know. I'm not positive that this would be helpful in every scenario, but it is helpful in every scenario I can think of right now. But playing it through and just reminding yourself, no matter what happens, you are going to be okay. And I can also use history as my proof for that. Say worst case scenario, in the next few hours, I end up in the hospital and in a surgery. If that happens, I'm going to be okay because of history. I have done this before. I have made it through this before. Yes, it's going to suck if that happens, and I will be afraid and I will be very upset and hurt if that happens, but I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make it through. I'm going to come out on the other side, and that's that, you know? And I think that process of looking at your fears, it makes it less unknown. And I think when it comes down to it, we fear the unknown. We fear things that are different and that shake up our normal, shake up our reality a bit. And all of that can be lessened by mental preparation, you know, and playing it through and not ruminating it and not thinking too much about the fears and giving them all the power, but just having a set time or just like when you feel it coming on and being like undeniable, not fighting it and actually just looking at the fear, writing it down or talking it out loud with someone you love or by yourself, and just working through why you are so afraid of this thing, validating that you are afraid of this thing, knowing it's okay, and then reminding yourself how strong you are and how you can make it through anything, and reminding yourself of how many things you've already made it through, and letting your history of making it through hard things be your proof that there's nothing to be afraid of. And at the same time, remembering that fear will continue to pop up for you. Fear is a natural human feeling, response, emotion that serves a purpose for us. A lot of the times it can save us from shady people who could hurt us. Hopefully it will save us from destroying our planet by being afraid enough that we've ruined it. So hopefully it sparks action. So not trying to run away from fear or trying to escape it altogether and say, well, like, I'm never going to be afraid again. It's like, I am going to be afraid again, and I know that I have the strength to push through my fears and come out on the other side. And just trusting yourself and trusting your ability to do that. And if you don't feel like you have the ability to do that, then asking yourself what you need to feel supported and like you do have the ability to do that. Maybe you need more supportive voices around you on a daily basis, and maybe this is a sign for you to go out and find your people, you know, find the group of people that you need to lift you up. And these people can be found where your passions are. If you're really passionate about bird watching, why don't you go out and find a bird watching group? If you're passionate about drawing, going to a drawing class, you know, whatever the thing is, it's possible to find a community of people who also love that. Especially with the internet and with all these virtual groups. You're no longer just limited to your physical location. Having people around us can really help with those fears. And not even in just like reminding us that we don't need to be afraid or that we're safe, but in saying like, I'm scared too, you know, and just feeling like you're not alone in your fears is so, so powerful, especially when it comes to these things that affect all of us. Like if you're in a family with people who are climate change deniers and you're really scared of climate change, you're going to feel not only fearful, but you're going to feel alone, maybe slightly gaslighted. I don't know, but it's not going to be a pleasant feeling. So you need people who are with you, who share your fears and share your passions and can validate your feelings and can just be that extra voice on the outside that is letting you know you're not crazy and what you're feeling is normal. And that is priceless. That is amazing. And actually, that is a great segue to bring me into the next one that came in, which is loneliness. Fear and loneliness. Fear, scared, loneliness, death. Those are the first three. Fear, loneliness, and death. I mean, that sums up the human experience right there. And I have a theory that every single fear ultimately boils down to a fear of loneliness or a fear of death. I had a good example, someone who reached out. For myself, like, if I'm afraid of going to a party because what if there's only one bathroom and then everyone hears me pooping in there and it's really embarrassing and awful, and if that's my fear, okay, well, what's underneath that? What's underneath that is a fear of embarrassment because I'm scared I'm gonna go there, I have to go to the bathroom, and then I'll be embarrassed. And what's underneath embarrassment? A fear of abandonment, that they're not gonna like me, they're not gonna wanna be my friends, and then I'm gonna be alone. So ultimately, it's a fear of loneliness. It's a fear of abandonment, loneliness, very similar. And just by identifying what it is, it makes you feel so much less wrapped up in the why. Because I think so much of fear and loneliness is the questioning. It's the ruminating. It's, why am I alone? Why am I so scared? Why? And by going through these things and just defining for yourself why you feel this way, it erases that whole layer. And then you can just feel the feeling and move on. You're like, yeah, I feel really scared right now, and it's because of this, this, and this. Move on to the next thing, you know? Or, yeah, I feel really alone and lonely right now, and it's because of X, Y, and Z. Feel it, and then you can move on to the next thing. So I'm obviously not going to solve the age-old problems of loneliness, fear, and death in this video or in any amount of videos, because these are, again, age-old problems. They have been here for as long as humans have been alive, and they will be here for as long as humans are alive. But I truly do believe that the biggest component that we can help with when it comes to these fears and facts of reality is validating them and just reminding ourselves that it is normal and we are not alone in these worries. And especially when you feel like you're alone. When you feel like there's a problem that you're going through and you have to be the only person going through it, no. There's been many people who have gone through it. There are many people who are currently going through it, and there will be many people who will go through it. You are never alone in your experience. Humans have been around for, I don't know, billions, not science, but these are human problems. These are human things that happen, and we are not meant to solve them. We are not meant to erase them. We are meant to experience them. And trying to erase that experience causes us suffering, rather than just living through the experience and moving on to the next one. You can think of it like a storm passing by. It's like, I feel like ruminating in these problems or suffering is really just like running alongside the storm. It's like the clouds are trying to move past you, but you're just like running and staying in the rain just because you think you have to. But you can just stop and you can just feel the rain as it passes over you. Let it pass over you. Absorb it. And then before you know it, it's going to be gone. And you're going to be feeling like yourself. And it happens. It's going to happen. It has to happen. I know I've mentioned this before, but that analogy with the phases of the moon of like, sometimes you are a new moon and you are in the dark. You have no soul, you have no sun to reflect light off of. You are in the dark, but you're still there. You're still a moon. Your body is there, but you feel disconnected and dark. And then sometimes you are a full moon and you are like, I'm here, I'm bright, I'm shining, I'm reflecting all of this sun, here you go. And then all of those phases in between the full moon and the new moon. It's like, sometimes we are partially illuminated, sometimes we are fully, sometimes we are in the dark, sometimes we're partially in the dark. We have all these phases that we're always moving through. And we're not meant to just stop at one phase and stay there forever. And we would honestly hate it if we could do that. It would get boring as fuck really quick. So we are meant to move through all of the emotions, all the phases and just keep it moving, just keep it moving. So that's loneliness for me. I personally feel lonely a lot with a chronic illness, especially when I'm feeling like I'm sick and I'm the only one who understands. So support groups. I've talked about this in so many videos, but getting to support groups, the ccfa.org has so many virtual support groups you can go on, and just, it's so comforting to hear someone else saying a story that you thought you were the only one that experienced. And when you're dealing with a chronic illness, with IBD, with IBS, these are very isolating and lonely diseases, and they don't have to be. They will be at some times, and it's okay, but they don't have to stay that way. They can be very unifying with these diseases that feel to completely reinforce the idea that you are alone, especially when you have to sit on the toilet alone for hours or however long you have to. Hearing someone else who goes through the same thing and feels the same way, you can be alone together, and then you're no longer lonely and you feel understood, and it's very powerful. So yeah, that's a good way to deal with loneliness, I think. I want to move along here to death. Let's talk about death. It's really funny that this is coming up today because one of my best friends, Krista, is just talking to me about death and just kind of asked my thoughts on it. So I literally just talked about this morning. I don't think I would have ever considered or thought much about death if it wasn't for my near-death experiences. And at least 3, maybe 5 times I've been almost positive that I was gonna take my last breath and that I wasn't gonna make it. And the reality of that is still something that I deal with. It's not something that I think is ever going to leave me. But I'm very grateful for those experiences because they really put things into perspective for me, of course. And the last time I felt that way was just over a year ago, and during my last surgery in September. And I felt incredibly anxious when I woke up from that surgery. As I thought that I was dying, I thought I was going to die, I had so many regrets. Not regrets, but there were so many things I wished I had done. And it's my legacy. I wish that I had started making YouTube videos because this is something I've been wanting to do since I was in high school. I wished I had that. I wish I had written a book. I wish that there was more of me out in the world that someone could look to when I'm gone and feel like they were talking to me, or, I want to leave a legacy. Whenever I die, whenever that happens to be, I want there to be video evidence of me talking, so whoever is missing me and all my loved ones can feel like I'm still there, kind of, and they can have kind of conversations with me, and I don't want anything to go unsaid. But I guess when we're talking about like the fear of dying, it really depends on what you believe. It depends on what you believe happens after you die. And for me, that changes all the time. Not all the time, but that changes periodically. I try on different hats of like beliefs. I once really had the belief that of multiple timelines where if you die in this life, you just wake up in a different timeline where you didn't die. I thought that was pretty cool. I also have had the thought of just instant reincarnation, the second you die, you're just being born again into the earth. I've also had the thought of when you die, you just ascend to a never-ending party that is incredibly familiar, and it's all the people you love and have ever loved, and you're just oh yeah, duh, this is what it is. And then you're just partying in love and light for eternity, and then you get bored and realize oh yeah, that's why I wanted to go back down to earth. And then you choose to go back down to earth, and you choose your life, you choose your circumstances. And I picture it kind of like a game of
like those people that you meet that feel like they're very connected to you on like a soul level. I just feel like you guys are, your eternal selves are just always partying and having a great time together, wherever that is. And you make it a game to come down and find each other. And that's a really fun idea. That brings some comfort to me. So, yeah, I feel like dealing with the fear of death, I'm not going to act like I've dealt with it, but I think a lot about it. I think about it at least once a day. Definitely every night before I go to sleep, I have thoughts about death. But in an effort to mitigate those fears, I guess, in an effort to contemplate and understand things a little more, because I feel like if you feel at safe and home in your body and in your mind and in your soul, then that's all that matters. And I feel like death isn't going to change any of that. And I guess if we go back to the process of looking through your fears, the worst case scenario with my fear of death would be nothing. And it would be like everything's just black and nothing exists and nothing ever existed and it's just nothing. And even if that's the case, I'm not going to be there to be afraid. You know, like it's not like I'm going to exist in nothing. Like it would be nothing. And we can't even comprehend that. And I think that's why it's scary. But even if that is what happens, there's nothing to be afraid of. And shifting your fear of not being here and your fear of dying into making the most of your life right now. And if you are afraid of dying, what you're really afraid of is leaving behind this life and leaving behind your loved ones. And I think the best way that you can honor your loved ones and your life is by making the most of it and being present for it and doing the things you know you have to do, creating what you have to create while you're here. Of course, all of this is easier said than done, and this is my best self talking, and I don't feel like this all the time, but this is the self that talks me down from my irrational, maybe not irrational, but like my fear and my fear brain talking, where I just like can't shut up about all the possibilities of what could go wrong. So that's my take on death. Some other things that came in was pain and cramping. Again, very familiar with those things. The best way that I deal with pain and with cramping feelings is with a heating pad, with massaging, with techniques such as feeling the pain and not trying to run away from it. Although sometimes the pain is so intense that you have no choice but to feel it. Another thing that came in was being tired all of the time. I can definitely relate to that. I think stimulants have a lot to do with us feeling tired all the time. If you drink coffee like I do, I go through stages where I don't drink any coffee and stages where I do drink coffee, but I've been in a heavy stage now of just drinking coffee every day. And something I remember during the stages where I don't drink coffee is that I have a lot more energy. And the crash that I get from coffee makes me feel tired. It makes it hard for me to sleep. There's just so many things about stimulants and caffeine that like make you feel tired, ironically. And feeling tired all the time, also just from not getting good sleep and looking at blue screens or watching TV or being on your phone before you go to bed. Something that is really helpful, this is like my one good tip if you feel tired all the time, is to listen to a yoga nidra practice. Yoga nidra is amazing. It's called, or yoga nidra, I've heard it pronounced. I'm really bad with pronouncing things, but it translates to yogic sleep. So it's basically the act of watching your body fall asleep. So remaining conscious in your mind as you actively fall asleep. It's so beautiful. There's some really great teachers of this practice online. I will link them down below, but Tanis Fishman on Insight Timer always gets me. Jennifer Piercy, same way. It just always gets me. But guided meditation teachers are so personal, and there could just be one little thing about someone's voice that just doesn't click with you, and then the whole practice doesn't click with you. So really search around for a teacher that speaks to you on like a deeper level, so that you can have the ability to not hear the voice or not think about the person saying it, but just let your body attach to the cues and to the words that are being said. I don't know if that makes sense, and sometimes if you're tired all the time, you just need to sleep. Maybe you just take a nap. Just add a nap into the schedule. Or maybe you do nap and naps actually don't agree with you. Naps do not agree with me. If I nap, I'm exhausted the rest of the day. So maybe you're one of those people. I don't know. This is a very personal thing. But there's a lot of different things you can do if you are tired all the time. I mean, I'm definitely tired most of the time. I could qualify myself as being tired, but I just kind of do it anyway. I don't know. Okay, on to the next one. This is an interesting one. Congestion in chest / like a heavy feeling, and feels like a release of emotions and people are needed. This is a very relatable point to me, but I haven't really heard it described like this. I guess during those time periods where you're really maybe isolating yourself, you're not speaking your mind, you're not speaking what's on your heart, it can create like a physical heavy feeling in your throat and chest area. Or if there's something like maybe a very specific thing, like you have a friend and you really have to have this conversation with them, but you keep putting it off. I know that can really cause that feeling. And sometimes you just need to cry. It's happened to me a lot where I feel like I need to cry, and then like a whole week goes by and I'm like, I still haven't cried, and I just realize like I'm constantly on the verge of tears for like no apparent reason, or probably my menstrual cycle. But once you do let those tears out, if you listen to a song that maybe always makes you cry, or go for a drive by yourself and just let it out, or watch a sad movie, or just anything to trigger some tears. And then once they come, this is the trick, push, like let it out. Because I feel like sometimes I will cry and then I just try to like stop. And I'm just like, no, I don't want to cry right now. And then I stop. And then it's just like, it gets worse. And it feels like even more built up, and it feels heavier and more congested. And what I have learned with myself really works is once I get even like a tiny little tear, like kind of like fake crying until I real cry and just wail like, ah, like that. Like that really helps me get rid of that feeling. Also just like a hug from your mom, a hug from your friends, like all of these things I think really help when I'm feeling that congested, heavy feeling. I don't know if that is how you feel, or if those are the feelings that are associated with the heaviness in your chest or that congestion. But you can always give that stuff a shot and just see if it helps at all. And I think a lot of the times when we're dealing with emotional problems or issues that come up, the answer to them is so much simpler than we make it out to be. And I think a lot of times we can trick ourselves that like there's this specific chant we need to do, or there's some yoga pose that we really need to do, but sometimes we just need to cry. And sometimes we just need a hug from a loved one. And it really can be that simple. Sometimes these things just need to move through our bodies, and sometimes we're just going to be congested until we're not. I mean, I have literally been congested and feeling like that for the past like 2 months, and I think it just got better like 2 days ago. It started to like clear up. So it's really funny that you feel that way too. And the last thing that came in was eating when you know it's going to cause pain. And this is like my daily life. I feel like food more than not will cause me pain. And I'm trying to think of just how I deal with this. I think I've kind of accepted it, as sad as that sounds. Like, I just accept that I'm going to be in pain, or that I'm going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, and I kind of weigh my options of like, is the pain of being hungry worse than the pain that this food is going to cause me? And that's a very case-by-case question. And this is heartbreaking. This is a heartbreaking truth of modern food that we have. And probably the real answer to this is to like grow all your own food on organic soil and cook everything with the right cookware. Like there's just so many factors to why our stomachs are fucked up. And a lot of it is like genetics, and it is your body and the makeup of your microbiome and all that. But also a lot of it is from our environment and just maybe whatever like materials on nonstick pans, or maybe preservatives that are in the food, that like there's just so many different things that it could be. And it's so exhausting to go through that and think about it. But if you have the energy and if you have the motivation to like truly experiment and find some food, but like, no, because even when you find safe foods, it changes. At least for me, it does. Like food that's safe for me 1 month, and then I overdo it because I'm like, oh, this is a safe food. And then I realize it's making me sick. So I'm really sorry. I think Sean, this was from you. I'm sorry I don't have more of an answer for this, but I'm going to think about it more, and I'm going to notice some things that maybe I can do to release this pain. Or I mean, a lot of the times I think the answer is the same as the other one, and it's to cry. Because it fucking sucks. It sucks so bad that food, the thing that we were taught, gives us fuel. Food is fuel, food is energy. And like, I know that it is, but like, it's also fucking poison. It's also poisoning us slowly but surely, and some of us not so slowly. And it is so maddening. And I know I've told this story before, but when I went to Costa Rica and the food grew from the land I was living on, that was the first time I ever understood why people say food is fuel. I was like, I'm literally getting energy from this food right now. This is nuts. And it was the first time in my entire life that I'd ever felt that way. And I was 22, I think, when that happened. So that's really fucking sad. And this country is so fucked. And I guess this brings me back to the fear of our fucking country and the climate. And it's all just a circle. So yeah, I guess the best advice I have for eating food when you know it's going to cause pain is to cry about it. Know that you're not alone. I feel you so hard in that struggle. And either eat it anyway or find something different to eat. It's a really tough one. Sometimes I will just fast and I won't eat anything for like 16 to like 24 hours sometimes. And that can really make me feel good and like give my stomach and digestive system a break, and then pacing yourself when you start eating again. And I think that actually really does help with the pain factor, because you kind of give yourself a fresh slate whenever you eat new things. And yeah, so I feel you on that, and I'm very sorry, and I will keep thinking about things that might help. So I'm going to end this video by reading one more time page 167 from Inward by Young Pueblo. Peace makes you strong. Hate reveals your emptiness. Kindness feeds your happiness. Anger reveals your fear. And love makes you free. So I guess, in short, the answer to all of these questions and feelings can be love. Love yourself regardless of all these feelings. Know that you are not alone, even when it feels like it. And know that you are so worthy of being loved just because you're alive. Literally, just the fact that your heart is beating, that is such a miracle. This is a miracle. And the fact that your body can breathe, these things are magic. You're not doing anything to control your heart to beat. You're not doing anything to breathe while you are fast asleep. These are gifts, and these are things that mean that you are worthy of love, because you are loved and you are love. It's already here. It's your heart. Your heart beats all the time. Constant reminder that you are loved, regardless of all of this shit. And as often as we can remind ourselves of that, the better off we are going to be, I believe. And the more we help the people around us. Because when we feel deeply and truly loved by ourselves and by whatever source you believe is making your heart beat, then you allow others to feel the same way. Because this is not something that is true for you. This is true for me. This is true for you. This is true for every single thing that you see that is alive. And these things, I believe, are truth, and they help me believing that these are truth. So even if they're not true, I see zero harm in believing that they're true. And I think that's where I fall with a lot of spiritual things. It's like, why not? Or what if these things are true? Because if you don't believe that something is possible, you are not going to see it. It's impossible for you to see it. It's like, oh, there's a line in this book that says it. It's like expecting to see the sunrise with your eyes closed, or expecting to feel water without dipping your toes in the river. If you are completely closed to the possibility of higher forces of love and light and support and guidance and angels and all these things that are purely love and only there to help you, and even just the idea, you can make it completely your own, but just the idea that there is love all around you and the world is conspiring for your benefit and people want to see you succeed. Believing these things are so helpful. So why not? Or what if? What if that's true? What if everything I just said is completely true? What if? If it helps you, fucking go with it. Who cares? What even is this? What even is all of this? What is this? What is all of this? I mean, that could be very mundane and boring to you, and if it is, then it is. Then you're right. But if that's fucking insane and magical to you, like it is to me, then it also is. Then you're also right. Life is what you believe. So if you can shift a little bit your beliefs to benefit you and to make you feel peaceful and happy and loved, then why not? You deserve that. You deserve to feel good. You deserve to feel great. You deserve to be loved. So why not? Why not and what if? Yeah. Okay, I think that's all I want to say today. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, leave me a little message in the thingy, or you can search my name on anything and find me. You can send me an email. You can send me a DM on Instagram or whatever. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. I've been watching a lot of the Sarah Silverman podcast, and I just love it so much. You should watch it if you haven't. And her format of podcasting is having people leave voice messages or call in and leave voicemails. And I just love that so much. I love being able to hear other people's voices and hear all of the different perspectives that exist in this world right now, out of the people who listen to that podcast, of course. But that is honestly my ideal format. That would be my dream way of doing these videos, is just answering people's questions or just talking to people, reading emails, and whatever form it is. So if you're okay with your voice being on my YouTube channel, then click the link in the description where you can record a voice message for me, and I may or may not play it and respond to it Sarah Silverman style on this YouTube channel. So